Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here to review Trese. Or Trese? Trese? I'm probably going to butcher that name consistently. I know that I ill pronounced in the very first review. I think I called it Trese because it was just easy. Trese, I kept hearing it called Trese, like how they say bosse in these episodes. Um, I'm probably going to ill pronounce Alexandra's last name consistently. So more than likely, I will just call her Alexandra, so people hopefully will understand who that is. Also, I had kept calling the two twins that were with Alexandra. I kept calling them the Cabal because I've just been kind of known to watch like a movie called Nightbreed, and one of the characters in that movie was called the Cabal, and so like I just figured that it's some kind of nickname or some kind of something that these twins were given. Evidently, it's just a translation of the word twins in in like in English. It actually, their name is actually just the twins. I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. One thing also, I want to thank everybody for really just going and watching the heck out of this first review. Really, nobody has to like the video. If anything, everybody does a hard enough job just watching what I have to say. So really, like nobody has to like the video. I greatly appreciate it. I was like overwhelmed by the response of that video and how it continues to go the way it's going. I greatly appreciate that. Um, Hopefully, I don't take this review and mess all that up. So hopefully, I get every name right. Hopefully, I get things correct in this review. So, some things that I want to let everybody know, like a little tiny bit of things that people might not have knowledge of, because these two episodes kind of feel very familiar to me from other things. Like especially this third episode does kind of remind me of like a little bit of this thing called the DC Showcase of the Spectre. More than likely, there might be a video of that somewhere on YouTube somewhere. But also, like, you can probably go on an app called Fox HD Movies or probably any number of things and go on and search DC Showcase The Spectre, Spectre. And so you should be able to, if you haven't heard of that video, go ahead and check that out. The Spectre is actually a very amazing DC character, and I thoroughly enjoy that showcasing. But also, the fourth episode does kind of remind me of a extreme Ghostbusters episode called "Casting the Ruins." Like to me, like in the fourth episode, I honestly wanted to start calling these stones ruins because really that's kind of what popped into my mind of what was kind of going on here because I felt like these stones were much more prominent than what they were actually to be said in here, but translations and stuff like that, knowing full well that this is a Philippine show that I guess is translated in English, and so no problems with that, but yeah, it's. I just kind of assumed it might have been ruins instead of actual stones. But anyways, so what is to happen in episode 3 and 4? Well, both 3 and 4 we are to come back to the story before of the security guards that were to be attached to some military operation. Uh, we are tying them back in. Evidently, we have a character named Ramona who had killed numerous of these security guards in a previous episode to eventually have the vengeance of getting back her husband somehow. And so we have that going on through these two other episodes, and also we are to have two brand new stories as well. we are to have a doctor of the stars that we end up finding out that there is a connection between this doctor and some very famous actress, and we are to see a creature within this third episode that is eventually having also some tie between these two people, and we eventually will find out why that is. Also, in the fourth episode, we are to have mainly this episode kind of focusing on Captain Guerrero and his precinct. How eventually we will have a seemingly zombie like invasion coming into his precinct, and that is to all be tied because otherwise of some stones that have to be found to rid themselves of this zombie invasion. Really, like the fourth episode, I'm like, man, like this is really picking up. Like, there's a lot to like unpack in this fourth episode. Really starting to see where really Captain Guevara is compared to some of his other police officers, and like really it's kind of a very interesting episode. So with that said, I think I'm going to try as much as possible to get into the review of this so I won't spoil any more time. So with that said, let's get into spoiler time, because it's about that coveted time yet again to go into spoiler time. Spoiler time, it's about that time again to spoil these episodes. So in the very beginning of this episode, we are in a flashback. We are to have Romano, if I'm having to double question every time I try to pronounce something. So we have Romano, who is to be the mysterious woman that Trese was to have a towel of before. Ramona is to go and collect Commander Smith, I believe, who was the leader of this military force from a previous episode. Ramona is to collect this man with children in hand. She has evidently 2 children, who I guess that she has, brought back as well, I believe. And so we have Commander Smith, who is now eating the hearts of every single one of his previous compadres, men-at-arms, co-workers, former co-workers, because they're all dead now. We have this commander who is forcibly eating every one of these hearts, and eventually he spits one out. We have Romano, who is talking about the god of war and mentioning how that she is going to try to get her husband back from the grave. Well, we have this commander being set up to eventually be sacrificed for a blood ritual. Kill something off to eventually go on and have something be brought back. So we have Romano, who is to go on and kill off this commander. And while that is going on, we are to also have seemingly a god of war who does appear. And it looks like Ramona's husband, but it actually is the god of war. So we have this god of war who is to peer to Ramona and look at her children and want to kill both of them off, to basically show that this is not her husband, this is some other entity that has just arrived here. And so we have to put a pin in that via this episode, because eventually once we get to the fourth episode, they do finish up this story. So like they kind of leave it hanging in this episode, but they get back to it into the fourth episode. So we have a doctor named Dr. Petra, who is to be in a parking lot. She is to just kind of look around. She's kind of hearing some sounds, some rumbling. She's very unsure of what it all is. And so all of a sudden, this woman is to just be like leg grabbed, and she is to be dragged underneath her car. All of a sudden, like there is blood everywhere, and we just stop there. We don't see what this was. We're trying to figure out what the heck, like, what happened? Like, is her car just a murderer? Is it the car? Is it the car of death? I don't know. But anyways, well, I do know because I watched the episode. So, we have Captain Guevara having Alexandra and the twins coming to like, dude, this is another one of those, like, I don't know what the heck happened. So we have Alexandra, who is to go and see that it looks like there seems to be some kind of like it looks familiar of a wild animal kind of marking. And so we have Alexandra, who is to try to trace and or track the creature's movement, to where she is to use a magical spell to see the imprints or the footprints of this creature to lead her into some kind of like a ventilation shaft. Like, I want to call it a ventilation shaft, but I could be wrong about that. So it looks like one, but it could be like a sewer vent or something. I don't know. But like, it looks like a ventilation shaft to me. So we immediately have Alexandra, who is wanting to know what this creature is. And so we have Trese wanting to figure out like any kind of information that she can on either Dr. Petra or like anything that she had done before she had died. So we end up having Alexander and the twins and Hank, because Hank is a very much more like prominent role, especially in this episode. I think in the fourth episode we kind of more concentrate on Captain Guerrero, and so Hank is like for the most part like a not existing thing. But it seems like he keeps like being a much more prominent role than what he was in previous episodes. So we have Trese, who is going into this room that is of a bunch of cameras and a computer. And so we have Trese, who is going and calling upon a ghost named Robert, or like it's pronounced Jobert. So I want to say Robert, but that could be ill pronounced. I want to say like Jobert, but I could be wrong about that. So we have Trese, who is with this ghost, and so we have the twins who are watching this guy just go off and start playing like video games. It seems that one of the twins is noticing that it's like, oh my god, is that the new like I think they called it like Exodus 2.0, and we have this ghost who's mentioned like, dude, like this is like Exodus 4 or something like that. It could be ill pronounced or whichever. I'm sure I probably got that wrong. It's some kind of new video game, but it is what it is. So we have Alexander, who is dropping her knife in front of this ghost to say, you know what, I'm sure you're really very much busy right now, but how about you do what I asked you to do? How about go ahead and just do what I want you to do? And so we have this guy who is going into the camera footage, and there is not much to actually be seen. But also, we have this ghost who is to pick up on this doctor's the doctor of the stars like phone calls. It seems like the last person she was to call was an actress named uh, Aurora Nova Aurora, and so we are to have Hank do like a spit take. He's taking a cigarette and then he like drops it because he's like, the Nova Aurora, like the hottest movie star that is to be on star grace and screen right now. And really, we have the ghost who knows exactly what Hank is talking about. And so we are to also find out that it seems like Dr. Petra, or Pietra, I'm ill pronouncing that, I know it. Uh, I'm sorry. Uh, we find out that this doctor is actually the number one like fan club member of this Nova actress. And also, it just seems like they have a pretty good connection between one another. Like, I think that this doctor was a dermatologist, so I don't know how that is gonna, like, I don't know why that was important in this episode, but I guess it was. Uh, so we are to have this information be given, and so immediately we have Alexander, the twins, and Hank all go to the set of where Aurora, I guess, is shooting her latest film. We have them all go into her like her own private room to wait for her to show. While uh, while they are doing that, uh, we have Alexander, who is summoning this thing called a Mung Paso Paso Paso, Among Paso. It seems like this character looks very much like Nuno, the sewer guy. It seems like this character and that character look very familiar to one another. Plus, this character also has a like a golem character that is to protect this Paso uh, or Pieso. Um, it seems that like this feels like very weirdly familiar. But anyways, we are to uh, eventually have Aurora appear into uh, this spot to eventually find out that the poor doctor had died, and how is it like that Aurora is kind of connected to this whole thing. So we eventually have Aurora mention that she has to have spotted this creature once before, and so we have eventually Alexander and the twins going and investigating that. They are to go out into hell and to tell Hank that he is to watch over Alexandra, and and Trese and the twins are going out to eventually go and investigate what they are to see. Uh, okay. I'm gonna have to pause here for a second. All right. So we have both, or we have Hank who is talking to Aurora, and we are to find out that she is to have a robe that had been special made by her grandmother. We are to have Alexandra and the twins go into seemingly some other like I would call it ventilation shaft. They are to open it thinking that this creature is to be in there, for them to find the exact same kind of robe that had the same symbols as Aurora's robe did. So they're kind of putting two and two together to naturally assume that this creature had a nest that was to have been close to uh, the thing it was trying to get to. But we're to find out even more about this thing. We're to find out that one, this thing is a goblin, and the reason why it is attacking Aurora is because this thing is actually going back and trying to connect to Aurora, because this goblin was hosted by Aurora, meaning that she had given birth to this thing. She had been impregnated to pop out this goblin, to because she had said that she had held this thing for 9 months within her to have this be delivered as this goblin. Eventually, once she is to actually be close to it, because she will be. So we have also Hank running off at the worst possible time. He is running off to go and start to put guns together. Like, I got a little confused if Nuno was actually attached to this episode. That's where I was trying to double back and think if Nuno was involved in this episode or not, because I naturally assumed that he was or was involved. Like, because I know Hank does go and does throw some chocolates to Nuno somewhere within these two episodes. And I think it might actually be this one, where Nuno might actually be given Hank some information about these goblins and how they only go after their hosts. So we have Alexandra and we have the twins running back to Aurora. Hank is to go on and make his way back to Aurora to see that there is a goblin going and trying to get to Aurora. Hank tries his best to try to make a decent defense against this goblin. Try to repetitiously shoot it with a shotgun, but eventually the goblin cuts this thing in half, and so we have Hank trying to like make the best defense he can with all of these guns. But eventually the goblin is to get to Aurora, and so we have Aurora who is like slowly but surely approaching this goblin, to the point of Aurora eventually going and even like trying to be gentle with this goblin, like touching it on the head and being really nice to it. And then all of a sudden Aurora just pops out a knife and starts stabbing this thing repetitiously to death, mentioning that she had held this goblin within her for 9 months, and what a burden that this thing had like come to be, that eventually would come back to haunt Aurora. And so we eventually have Aurora just stabbing this thing to pieces to the point of her knife breaking. And so we have Alexandra telling Aurora or Nova, like, you know what, I think it's dead. I think you got it. And so we have Aurora who's like, oh, wow, yeah, whew. you know what? Like, it's a good thing that I just improvised every single little bit of lines that I just said there, like uh, trying to evade the fact that she said every confessing thing that tells us that Aurora was tied to this goblin. And so we have we have Aurora, who ends up getting scot free of this whole thing. And so Alexandra does a ritual to make this goblin go away. And so we are to also have evidence that because evidently Dr. Pietra had kept some pretty solid evidence that it seemed that Aurora wanted the goblin to go away, and so she had given it to the doctor, and so the doctor had put it in some woods somewhere and tried to leave it out there, but it's basically like a dog where the dog never forgets where its home is. And so eventually this goblin came back to its mother and will honestly never let go. So Alexandra gets the evidence that she needs to find out about what had happened, to where I would have assessed that really Alexander would have just said, okay, let's slap the cuffs on this girl because she was responsible for the murder of this doctor. Like, she was even though technically the goblin had killed the doctor, still, like, if anything, like, she could have been responsible. So, but I guess, like, they kind of figure, well, karma will come back to bite Nova eventually in the butt at some point. So we have Nova, who is going and getting out of the shower after all of this business and going and sitting in her bed thinking that all is well, turning off her light to just go, this is going to be a good night's sleep. And so all of a sudden Nova is to hear a sound. Nova turns back on her light to all of a sudden be surrounded by numerous goblins in her room. And we are immediately to be told, or to be thinking that, well, I guess someone's going to die. To where I think, really, like, it's kind of interesting how Alexandra, like, doesn't book everybody, because there's a whole reason for that. Like, there's a whole, like, dude, something's gonna come back to get you anyways, so what's the point of me, like, booking Dano everybody, because eventually it'll come back to bite you. And in this episode, it does that perfectly. So really, I hope I covered everything in that episode, but let's get into this next episode. So, we are to go back yet again into the flashbacky past to showcase that the God of War has appeared to go and try to kill Ramona and her children. So, we have Anton Trese, who is to eventually decide to act upon this. And so we have him and, of course, his child there. And so we are to have Anton kind of pondering whether or not he should call the War Council to help him out. And so we are to have Anton come in there, guns blazing, and so we are to have this God of War who is to be set around him some bounding ritual that Anton had done to keep the God of War from outside of this circle. And we have the God of War is like, are you serious? Like, is that what you're using to stop me, Anton? Like, come on. So we have this God of War who is to stab Anton for his troubles. And so we have Alexander, while the God of War is going on and messing with her father. We have Alexandra, who is to finish this ritual symbol, so that way the god of war can be consumed by all of these numerous looking golem like characters that I keep saying are golem characters, but they look just kind of like rock like characters, like Clayface or like Batman Clayface kind of characters that are to grab onto this god of war and send him back from whence he came. And so we have Ramona and Ramona, who is, I guess, still alive at this point. And so we are to have Alexandra comfort her father, as I'm assuming he is to basically just die. So we are to focus back onto current time. So we are to have Captain Guevara go through his common day-to-day stuff, brush his teeth. Here's one thing that kind of stuck out to me. If you actually look at Captain Guevara's alarm clock, it looks hugely reminiscent to an alarm clock from the movie Groundhog's Day, the Bill Murray film. Like, if that stuck to anybody else, like, wow, that's great. But, like, yeah, it looked like the exact same alarm clock from the movie Groundhog's Day from Bill Murray. And plus, it hit that 6 o'clock thing, just like in the movie. So I'm like, were they purposely trying to do that, or was it just a coincidence? I'm sure it probably wasn't, but it is what it is. So we have Captain Guevara, who is going and brushing his teeth, doing all of his common stuff, just having, like, putting one foot in front of the other and, like, getting himself prepared for his, I'm sure, very long stretch of day. So we have Captain Guevara, who is to eventually be going into the precinct to eventually find out that it seems that there are two police officers that are working under him that are kind of dirty. They kind of go and they grab, they take they take their prisoner and kind of are very rough with him, and the captain kind of notices that. It's like, hey man, like, if anything, be a little bit looser with our prisoners. And like, they're like, dude, like, we had to kill so many of this guy's friends. It's like, who cares if, like, this guy, like, if we rough this guy up a little bit? And Captain is like, you know what? Like, that seems a little, like, crappy. So we are all of a sudden to find out that it seems that there have bizarrely had bodies that are starting to pop up from this graveyard and or the morgue of this precinct. We are to also see that we are to have eventually a slowly but surely zombie apocalypse that is to arrive in this precinct. We are to start having the police officers try and defend themselves off as best as they can, and eventually we start having the captain eventually trying to scramble and start to unlock one of his prisoners, but the prisoner does not want to get out. He's like, no, like, I am going to, like, he ends up pushing the captain away from the jail cell, and he ends up locking the cage back in, mentioning, no, like, this is the best show in the house, and I am not leaving here. Like, if anything, if you guys die, but I am not leaving this spot. Because if anything, I'm going to watch you guys all get killed, and I am going to be safe. So we eventually have Alexandra and the twins eventually going and trying to help the precinct out. But they are also to be overwhelmed by zombies as well from the outside of the precinct. Eventually, we are to have Alexandra and the twins understand that it seems that there are stones within a number of these zombies. And so we have Alexandra, who is to write a symbol upon a bottle cap and to tie a string on it. And so we eventually have both Alexandra and the twins having like a like kind of a metal detector, but this string is like pulling them. This bottle cap and the string is like pulling them like a dog on a leash to try and find where these stones are to take all of these zombies out in one fell swoop. So we have Alexander, who is to find one stone in one gigantic looking zombie. Uh, Plus, we also have Trese, who decides that she doesn't want to call the War Council and all this, which I think is a big mistake. But yeah, we are to eventually have uh, God, I want to think of the fire demon's name. The guy that's just the head. Because I know that guy pops in here as well. So we have Alexander, who is to kind of like poke through this giant zombie to find one of the stones. But it seems that they need to eventually find a number of stones. And so eventually we are to have both the twins uh, and Alexandra trying to find a number of these stones, and eventually they are to try to make their way much more further into this prison. And so, I just remember the name. We eventually have both Alexander and the twins just kind of so outgunned. We have the twins mentioning, like, God, these things just keep coming. And so we have Alexandra, who is just at this point like, screw it. Like, I'm going to call Centalmo and have him just barrel through a lot of these zombies to just get through this. So we eventually have the captain talking to his prisoner, and we have the captain trying to want to protect this prisoner, and this prisoner is like, dude, like, you and any number of guys like me are nothing to you. It's just a number on a page somewhere. Like, if anything, if I really am actually important to you, ask me or tell me what my name is, Captain. Tell me what my name is. 'Cause you don't know. 'Cause you don't care. And so, all of a sudden, we are to have this captain mention every single man that had died that was involved with this prisoner that these two cops had killed. He knew every single name because every single death under his office matters. And so Captain Guerra is to ask this man, like, and let me know your name too, because if you are to die, it is important. And so we end up having this guy mention that his name is Raul, I believe. And so we are to eventually find that Santalmo really does try to barrel through all of these zombies, and the captain and his deputy are wanting to go out in a blaze of glory, because like the zombies had bashed through the part of uh, a part to get to the prison cells to get close to the captain and his deputy. And so the captain's like, well, I guess we're going to have to go out and blaze of glory. So Santalmo is to go through and start barreling through all these zombies to eventually barrel through and make it to where the captain and his deputy is. And all of a sudden, we are starting to see all these zombies who are just turned into ash. And so we have the deputy who's mentioning like, well, I didn't think you meant blaze of glory literally. Like I just thought you meant figuratively. And so we have Alexandra and we have the twins who have made it to the captain. And so now they are to need desperately to get every single ruin or stone to collect them together to have eventually Alexandra banish these stones to stop this zombie invasion. And so we have Alexandra who is to find out that the very last stone is within inside Raul. And so Raul goes and decides the right thing to do is to eventually upchuck this stone back up, give it back to the captain, and so the captain chucks the last stone in a pile of all the other stones. I believe there's 3 in total, I believe. So we have Alexandra who is to banish the stones away, and all the zombies all start to drop, and everything is fine yet again. And so, like, a very interesting episode, really a very helpful way to invest in the captain if really we were just to kind of see, like, we don't really, for comparison, like Batman, we don't see Commissioner Gordon, who has like a real true dedicated episode for most points. Like we'll see like a Batman Year One animated movie that feels very focused on Commissioner Gordon, but very rarely do we actually see like a lot of people eventually getting used. I think also we do have Nuno, who is in some part of like, because I feel like this character is in every single episode. Whether I realize it or not, I'm not quite sure. Like, I know Nuno had mentioned in one of these episodes that eventually the underworld is really starting to really arm themselves up because there is a war brewing. And so eventually, like, for how crazy this episode was, like, and how like crazy these last 4 episodes have been, how much bigger can this scale of things happen? Like, are we just going to see all of a sudden, like, from the real Ghostbusters episode, like the Halloween door? Are we just all of a sudden just going to see, like, the world, like, open up and just a bajillion monsters just fall all through it? Is that what's going to happen in the following episodes? Who knows? But if anything, I'm just kind of intrigued to find out more about these episodes, and I hope that you might as well be too. So, with that said, I think I have covered a bulk of everything. If there's any ill pronouncing or if there's anything that I missed, I apologize. But really, otherwise, like, these were interesting episodes. Especially once we got to the zombie invasion, I was like, yeah! Like, I was so excited. And plus, sadly enough, I guess there's going to be 2 more episodes, and then this season is already done. Like, the 2 episodes are going to be probably pretty short compared to the others, so more than likely, again, I'm probably just going to combine the 2, so that way I can get another one of these reviews out. So definitely I'm going to go in to do every one of these, but I'm not trying to stretch out time here. So I'm going to say goodbye, everybody. Thank you, everyone, for watching these. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.